Hi, we're going to talk about using the .NET API for VisualCron. So I'm having Visual Studio 2013 here, and I want to create a new project. And the API uses .NET 4.0, so you can use that version or any higher version than that. And in this case, I'm creating a C# console application. So to use the API, you need a reference to two important DLLs. And I'm finding these DLLs in the program files folder slash VisualCron. And these are the two files that I need. You need VisualCron DLL and VisualCron API DLL. The difference between these files is that in the VisualCron DLL you have all the class definitions, and in the VisualCron API DLL it is using the VisualCron DLL, and the VisualCron API DLL contains all methods to connect and get information from a remote server. And we have when we install VisualCron, you have an API folder which contains a sample project that is showing some of the basic things that you could do. So this is the sample project that exists, and you are able to see the code behind how to connect, change server status. We have divided the different objects that you can work with in these tabs. So here you have a specific job methods here, and licensing to activate, working with condition, tasks, etc. But I'm going to explain how easy it is and how few lines you need to interact with the VisualCron here. And it's important to know that the client that you normally use to connect, the Windows client here, is using the API itself. So everything that you can do in the client, you can do with the API. Both the client uses the API, and the web client that we recently developed is using the API. So now we have added these two references. We are also adding the usage statements. And the two main objects that we want to work with here to connect. We have the server object, and this object contains all the global objects that we're working with, all jobs and tasks, credentials, etc. We have the client object, which is used for the connection, controlling the connection, disconnecting, etc. And we have something called the connection, and then this controls how we want to connect to the remote server or local server. So there are two connection methods, a local one and a remote one. By default, it connects to the local one, but if you want to change this, you can change the connection method to remote here, and you can also change the port to something else, but the default port is this one. And if you want to change the username, because default it connects with the admin account, blank password, you set username, you have password, but if you want to connect with Active Directory logon type, you use this one instead. But we're not needing these lines here, but because we want to connect local with the default account. So to connect, you use the connect method on the client, and it will return, it will fill the server object. And you have an option here to synchronize objects. I recommend this to be true if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, so if you set that to false, it will connect without syncing all the objects. So you will receive an empty list of objects. You work in the blind, and you will be able to run jobs, but um, the client object will not really know if the jobs exist, etc. So because the connection is quite fast, I recommend you to use to set this to true to work every time. So once you have connected, you have a full list of objects here, and the structure is the following. So if you want to access jobs, you go to the jobs node here, and the structure between these objects, if you compare this with credentials, you have credentials here, you have add, you have get to get a specific object, you have get all to get a list of all objects, you have remove to delete an object. So this is consistent whether you use connections here, you use permissions, use credentials, etc. Something that is a little bit specific is that you have the jobs node, and if you want to do task specific called task specific methods, you can go to the tasks node here and maybe run, or you also have the triggers located under the jobs. So this is the basic structure, and to show you an example how to list existing objects, you can do something like this. So this is the easiest example, consisting of 7 lines to connect an existing VisualCron server and list all jobs. So this is how you can do it, and you can also use the PowerShell, create a PowerShell script, which in turn is using the .NET API. I hope this was a good starter for you, and look at the API sample that I described before. That project contains a lot of details when creating jobs and tasks. And if you have any further questions, I recommend using the forum, specifically the API forum. Thank you for listening to this.